Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, reading what I've read about the oral arguments yesterday in this extremely important abortion case, without a doubt the most important abortion case since 1992, that'd make it about 24 years ago. And, you know, if you do understand what the law in question, this Texas law, does in terms of putting roadblocks in the way of women, especially poor and rural women, to getting access to a constitutionally legal medical practice. If you knew, you could not imagine that any, I'm really struggling with it, any person with the word justice in front of their name. I mean, there's a lot of honorifics. I'm sorry, I'm not taking calls yet. I just want to start my show. Thank you. There are a lot of honorifics, you know, that people have. Doctor, professor, blah, 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 father, cardinal, monsignor, your majesty, all that kind of stuff. Justice is up there, because you also call them your honor. I do not understand how someone with the honorific justice could even pretend that there was a question in this case, unless the justice is incapable of separating his religious views from his job as a justice, to hear the facts in a case and to get his own feelings about abortion out of it. Those feelings, religious fervor behind them or not, do not qualify to be part of the process in a justice's head. A justice is merely there to decide whether the law in question is constitutional. Whether or not abortion is constitutional has been decided. So that is not the issue. The issue is whether passing a law that almost immediately cuts in half or more the number of medical facilities performing abortions tells you right then this is a law that has a huge impact. Right? Justice Roberts, Justice Alito, spent a lot of time yesterday during these arguments trying to ascertain if there was any proof at all that the Texas law had had a negative impact on women's access to abortion. What? Let me tell you. There was an exchange between Justice Sotomayor and the attorney representing the state of Texas. And she asked him, so let me understand this. I mean, there is now a thing that's called a medical abortion, which really involves taking 2 pills 2 days apart. And Sotomayor says to the guy, so surely when a woman comes in and the doctor prescribes those 2 pills, I'm going to quote her now, the women take the pills home, correct? No, says the man from Texas. Sotomayor looks like someone just said something so unbelievable she said, I'm sorry, what? That was her reaction. I'm sorry, what? She has to come back 2 days to take them? He explains that you have to take the pill in the facility. Understand that the law has closed, I think, over half of Texas's clinics. So women are now traveling hundreds of miles to get to the facility. What if a woman doesn't have a car? What if there's no bus service? How's she supposed to get there? And she's supposed to take an entire day away from her children, maybe, or from work when she wouldn't get paid. And she has to somehow manage to get to this clinic 200 miles away just to take a pill. And then she has to come back 2 days later to take another pill. Understand there's no reason to take the pill at the center. You give a woman, it's like any other pill. You give a woman a pill, you give her instructions, and away she goes. Now, the whole point of this, Roberts kept asking questions about whether or not this constitutes an undue burden. These men on the court did not find it particularly burdensome that a woman would have to go to extraordinary means in some cases and maybe not be able to do it to find transportation to the nearest clinic, then either to stay in that city that she has traveled to, meaning more expense at a motel or a hotel, so that she can just go back to the clinic 2 days later and take another pill. Or she can do the round trip twice in 2 days if, in fact, she doesn't mind not getting paid or not having or leaving her children alone at home. I don't know, not having anyone to care about. What in the name of God is wrong with these justices on the court who cannot comprehend, cannot even summon up enough empathy to put themselves in a desperate and poor woman's shoes, who is only trying to get what is a perfectly legal medical practice. Imagine you got a real problem here in your tooth. You got such pain in your tooth, you can hardly stand it. Imagine if the same kinds of harassing regulations were leveled at dentists. And they are not. Dental surgeries and dental procedures result in a lot more medical complications, but they're not required to have a janitor's closet that's 3 feet and 2.5 inches by, 6 feet. They have not been harassed like this. You are not harassed to the point where most of the dentists have to close down. And so if you need some help, can you imagine? Because this is women. This is women's problem. And the justices think that the procedure is immoral. That has no standing when they are sitting in their black robes hearing a case in this supposedly secular government in which we pride ourselves on keeping a separation of sorts between church and state. Dahlia Lethwick, who is if you've ever heard, she's often on NPR. She has been covering the Supreme Court for a long time. She sat through this. And she left feeling, I sound angry, she left feeling pretty happy. Because here's what she said. The last time there was a case on abortion this big was 1992, as I said. And the court at that point had one woman on it. The first woman ever, Sandra Day O'Connor. The other 8 justices up there were all male. So 24 years later, the court has changed. There are now 3 women up there and 1 male who Lithwick says should be considered one of history's great feminists, and that is Stephen Breyer. So he was with the 3 women in their questioning. And here's what Lithwick says. So on the one side, you have this group of testy male justices consistently needling a female attorney for the Texas clinics about whether it was even appropriate for them to even be hearing this appeal. On the other hand, you had 4 absolutely smoking, hot feminists pounding on Texas's Solicitor General for passing abortion regulations that have no plausible health purpose and also, just to put it plainly, seem pretty damn stupid. Chief Justice Roberts tried to stop Ginsburg at one point. her time had run out or something. She absolutely ignored him and blew right on. So did Sotomayor. And Lithwick says there was something wonderful and symbolic about Roberts losing almost complete control over the court's indignant women, who apparently are just not inclined to play nice anymore. Roberts kept trying to say, whoa, so the law, we don't have any proof. Where's your proof that this law has resulted in the closure of these clinics? Maybe they were having financial troubles. And here's what Justice Kagan said to that. She asked the Solicitor General of Texas, so is it right that in the 2-week period that this law was in effect before another court said unconstitutional? She said, in the 2 weeks that it was in effect, is it true that over a dozen facilities shut their doors? And then when the court stayed the law, they reopened again immediately? The guy from Texas says, yeah. She says, well, it's almost like the perfect controlled experiment as to the effect of the law, isn't it? It's like you put the law into effect, 12 clinics close, you take the law out of effect, they reopen. And yet Robert, supposedly this judicial genius, is still not, where's the... It is really disquieting to, well, watch, we could not, but to see that Roberts, Alito, Thomas, who's back to not saying anything, that these guys have their minds made up simply because they're against abortion. That is not what is being decided. That was decided. They can't get their Catholicism out of the way of their job. Let's hope Justice Kennedy can. Incredible. While we're in the great state of Texas, we have spoken in the past, this comes up a lot. The Texas State Board of Education is extremely powerful because it has so many schools and students by virtue of its size, Texas, that they have a lot of clout when the publishers of textbooks for schools are getting ready to publish something. So if Texas says, well, we don't like that book, that book might not even get printed. And then you start looking at who is on the Texas Board of Education. Let me just give you one. She's not on it yet, but she's going to be. Her name is Mary Lou Bruner. She had 48% of the vote in a 3-person race, and now there's a runoff, but she's going to get in. She is somebody who has very strongly held views. In October of last year, on her Facebook page, she reported on her belief that President Obama, quote, hasn't come out of the closet about his own homosexual background. haven't even heard that one. I mean, they've thrown everything at him, but that one I hadn't heard. She went on to say that, quote, Obama has a soft spot for homosexuals because of the years spent as a male prostitute in his 20s. This is a woman who the voters in Texas are going to put on their state board of education. A board with a lot of power. You want some more? By the way, she has a master's degree in education, and she taught in public schools for 36 years. Here's some more of what she's put on Facebook. Quote, these are all quotes. School shootings started after the school started teaching evolution. Here's another. Many of the sexual education books which teachers read to your small children are not even allowed in jails and prisons because of the bad effect the books have on the prisoners. These books stimulate children to experiment with sex. Here's something else that this brilliant woman has posted. The Democratic Party had JFK killed because the socialists and communists in the party did not want a conservative president. And she's also said that the goal of the UN and the one world order is to reduce the population of the world by 2/3. She said dinosaurs were on the ark. And she's since, because she's running, she's since deleted these posts, but she told Breitbart News that she believes all of them were accurate. How do you even, we're waking up. I mean, it's not that we're waking up, but you see now that all of this craziness and willful stupidity has brought us to, as we know, a very pretty pass. If you have the stomach for it, of course, there is a Fox presidential debate tonight. I don't know. And as you no doubt know, in about an hour, Mitt Romney, the last person to secure the nomination of the grand old party, will be giving a speech at the University of Utah. And this speech is intended to take down Trump. We have a call. Hello, caller. Hello.
Hi, Lynn?
Yes.
Hey, it's Michael from Polish Hill.
Ha! Hi, Michael.
Sorry to call you so early when you're on a roll, but there were a couple of things I wanted to address politically and then a final note to tell you, but I'll try to make this quickly as possible because I know you have a lot to talk about today. First of all, I have a new conspiracy theory.
Okay.
That we're all familiar with, the one that Donald Trump has thrown in there by the Clintons to ensure a Clinton win, and I don't buy into that one at all. But I have this other conspiracy theory that I came up a couple days ago, and it's like kind of a spy versus spy, kind of like double agent conspiracy.
Okay.
That I think Trump is in cahoots with the Republican establishment. Because the Republican establishment already said, look, everybody hates Republicans, even especially Republicans hate Republicans now. So the only way we can get back in power is if we get someone to run totally against us. And so Trump's like, look, I have the personality to do this, and as soon as I get in there, I'm the most establishment, pro-business, pro-corporate person you're ever going to get. So the only thing we have to do is play this game is you have to be totally against me. No matter what I do, no matter what I say, whatever I say that you even agree with, you have to be totally against me. Get everybody in Congress to be against me. Get everyone in the Republican establishment to be against me. And then I'm a cinch. I'll be in. And then just keep that going through the nomination period and through the election, and then I'll be in, and we'll be set, and I'll just we'll be the Republican establishment back in control again. How about that? It's kind of a variation on the good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
But let's just to clarify.
What?
You don't really believe that.
No, but you know what? I wouldn't disbelieve it. It was kind of like a fever dream, but I don't know. Could you really put it past them? I don't know.
That would require them being smarter than we know they are.
Well, see, I don't know that. You always say we should not underestimate them, and we're talking about corporations and people that run the world. I don't know if I would put it past them. But okay, that was a fever dream. My other take on the last week of political things is the Christie thing. That people thought that, he's taken hostage and, whatever, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't think that at all. Admittedly, when I first saw the conference live, I was watching it on my phone, on my back. But I didn't see a look of, I didn't think he had any compunction about backing Trump. And if you've ever seen any of Trump's rallies, I thought it was staged just like Trump's rallies. I'm sure you probably haven't subjected yourself to them, but just last week I just watched a couple for the first time. I saw one in Columbus where he lands on his Air Force One, and the plane lands while he makes everyone waiting for 20 minutes, and they're playing the Rolling Stones music and this rock music. It's like an orchestrated rock concert, and he whips these people into a frenzy. The plane lands, the steps come down, he comes down with a umbrella with a flag on it and Trump, and he's holding it over Humpty Dumpty Christie, or Humpty Trumpty, we should call him Humpty Trumpty Crispy Christie. And then I don't understand, as a side note, I don't understand why the Rolling Stones don't sue him and quit him. He plays half of Beggar's Banquet and half of Let It Bleed. Why doesn't Mick Jagger say, just quit playing this?
Yeah, why don't he?
Anyway, so the Christie thing, I don't think it was that he had any compunctions about backing Trump. I think that look on his face is because, if you noticed, he looked a lot thinner than he usually does when he was standing behind Trump. I think the look on Christie's face was because he was wearing these ultra super industrial power Spanx, probably like three or four layers of these industrial Spanx, and they were constricting his bowels so much that he was actually pooping his extra large Depends while he was standing there. It looked to me like a guy that was wearing Spanx and pooping his Depends. That's what it looked like to me. I think he was totally, because remember that one thing, that clip that they kept showing that Donald Trump at one rally patted him on the back and he said, "Look, just get on the plane and go home now. Just get on the plane and go home now."
Right.
I think he said that because Christie probably pooped his Depends because of the Spanx. He's like, "Look, it's kind of stinking. You're kind of stinking up the stage here now. I can't stand it. Just get on the plane and go home now and change your diaper." I think that was it. But,
Oh, God. Have you been over in Europe while this is happening?
Hey, look, enough about me. I just want to say one thing about your show yesterday, and I'm really moved. And I don't even know how to put it into words, but what you shared yesterday about a procedure that you had in your youth, and you shared it with us, your radio audience, and your fans, even before you did with your family. And not that I can compare it, but, I mean, I was out as a kid, but before I actually even shared it with my family was much later. And but even as a kid, the repercussions were I mean, it was not without repercussions, and later, even with my family, it was not. But what you shared yesterday, it sounds so trite to say, oh, well, you have such courage. But no, thank you very much for doing that yesterday.
Thank you.
I know a lot of people are going to be responding to you about that. So,
well, do you think, I mean, I was saying that I think it sure worked for gays to say, I'm gay. You know what a gay is? This is gay, that's gay, this is gay. If women who've had abortions were to come out of and they're in the closet because of the fact that it's, even though totally legal, apparently we're supposed to be ashamed of ourselves.
I just don't even comprehend why it's an issue. Even
it is
I mean, if people told men, oh well, you can't get a vasectomy, I mean, it would just be so ridiculous that people say, oh well, you know, men aren't allowed to take Viagra or wear a condom or something. That would never even be an issue. But when it comes to women's bodies, it's so weird. This I don't know.
It is.
Say it's a patriarchal system.
Well, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
But it's just such a bizarre, weird thing that it's anybody's business.
Well, women's bodies since day one have terrified men because they're magical.
Well, they have to.
Women's bodies are magical. Yeah, women have to be extraordinarily strong. Why did God say? Was God thinking when he said, okay, let's take this poor little woman, the weak woman, and let's make her do the hardest thing to ensure the continuation of my creation, which is to give birth. Really?
Well,
Come
it's
on,
even
guys.
more of a biblical thing. If you want to go back to the Old Testament, you're the ones that gave us the apple and created original sin.
Always women.
It's your fault.
It's always women. It's why
women.
billions of women have to be draped in black cloths because a man might have trouble if he perceives them in, a piece of skin or something. I think women have Black Lives Matter. You can feel the buildup, the sort of the rage that's now pouring out. Women too need to become enraged again. This is getting again out of hand. The pushback.
Well, that's why we need to have a woman president next.
Yeah, we do.
All right.
Okay, you.
All right, you.
Always,
I love you.
I
All
love
right,
you
bye.
too. Always nice to talk to you. You didn't answer my question. I wanted to know, like in Europe, what are they saying? Because Michael is the lead singer, the front man, I believe is the proper term for the punk rock band, the Cynics. And they spend most of their time in Europe. So I don't even know what to say anymore. Okay, so speaking of that pushback, and Republicans have pushed back for years. Anytime progress is made, they start pushing back, right? That's been the history of this country. And I don't want to get into this crap that they bring up. Oh, no. The Republicans were the progressive party. It was you Democrats who were against civil rights and blah, blah, blah. That's what they say. But what they won't acknowledge is the two parties changed hands. As soon as the Civil Rights Act was passed, that solid Democratic South, and Lyndon Johnson, who signed that, knew what was going to happen. What an act of political courage, his signing that, because he was blowing his own party out of the water. And that's exactly what happened. Where you never would see a Republican elected in the South when I was a little kid. Well, now you won't see a Democrat elected because all the bigots and racists and people who can't handle progress jumped to the Republican Party, which welcomed them with open arms. So much so that Nixon, had his Southern strategy. The dog whistles, keep those racists on our side. And they wonder and they act offended when Donald Trump starts doing what they've done every election I can remember since the 60s. All right. I'm sorry, I am going to work myself up today. Mike in Philly writes, check out, if you dare, a documentary called The Revisionaries from 2012. It's about the state of Texas and its grip on school books. Everything from one person's demand that Obama's middle name be included every time he is mentioned, to trying to completely delete evolution from all the books. Mike in Philly is a school teacher. Now, here's the good news. Schools are moving away from textbooks completely. They are bulky, costly, and you never get through the entire book. In the past 3 years, I have not had one book. Math uses a book. Social studies, history, and science do as well. He teaches English and music. Next year, we'll have no math books, no social studies books. It'll all be online sources. Within 5 years, there will be no books at all. Our health and sex ed has no book. And here's a news flash to everyone. By the time 7th and 8th graders get sex ed, they've been exposed to hundreds of hours of sex on the internet. The one thing they don't know about is pregnancy. So, even though it's bad, it's getting better. Technology will righten the ship. Kids hate the books and look at them as silly anyway. But on the bright side, the only books they do love are novels. Kids still read. Oh, yes, they do. I'm glad. So, anyway. Dealing with what I sort of just said about, and even the novel, the documentary's name, Revisionaries. Yesterday we were talking about Scalia and how his whole thing was about looking backwards. And this is what some people, they just aren't comfortable with change. And they become conservatives, and they become scared, and they become very angry. And Brent Staples, hello?
Hello, Lynn.
Yes.
Rubio and Cruz, if you ever listen to them in their rallies and that, they'll say that they're going to do their governing on their religious views.
I know. It's
to
unbelievable.
me, that should be a disqualifier right there.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, say that even. You shouldn't. They disqualify you right there. Because what about everybody else's views?
Yeah.
That
No, this commingling of Christianity and a certain kind of Christianity with Republican presidential politics has been extremely hurtful to our country. And they don't get it. They don't understand what's taking them down. I hope to hell they're going down.
I do too.
Even though what comes in their stead could be worse.
That's true.
So let's not, so maybe.
But if you're a Democrat, how do you survive in Texas? I always wonder that.
I don't know. I don't
I
understand how anyone can. Yeah, I don't.
You must take a beating when you live there.
Well, I've had people email me or call me who live in the South, who are liberals, and they say you don't talk. You just shut up and let everybody think that, of course, you are a conservative Republican.
Wow.
Isn't that? I couldn't live
That's
that way.
unbelievable.
Well, I could not live that way.
No.
I'd either be run out of town on a rail or I just have to pick up and leave. I can't imagine. So.
And did you hear Ventura's going to run? If Bernie Sanders is not the nominee, he's going to run for president.
Oh. Jesse Ventura? Where's he been?
On his show on that TV.
Come on.
Now he's going to run, he said.
Okay.
Bernie's not going to make it. We know that.
Yeah,
so
right. So
that'll make it real interesting.
Oh, yeah. So Jesse Ventura's going to make it? Give me a break.
Yeah.
Well, the clowns, the people who need attention just keep coming out of the woodwork. I mean, that's all. Jesse wants some of this. He sees the clown cars. He knows the circus is in town, and he figures, I got a part here. Because he was the first. He was the first, wasn't he? Yeah. Sort of TV entertainment celebrity to, in fact, run for political office and, to everyone's astonishment, win the governorship of Minnesota.
And he was a mayor.
He was a mayor?
Yeah, I think he was a mayor, too.
I don't know.
So.
All right.
Okay, then.
Bye.
Thank you.
I need a Valium. Okay. So, just want to share with you this Brent Staples stuff about well, it's titled Donald Trump and Reconstruction Era Politics. So, after the Civil War, okay, and Abraham Lincoln, who would no more belong to the Republican Party if he were alive today than come up with the most absurd possibility in the world. No, he would no more. But Brent Staples gives us a little history. He said, look, every time there is progress made, especially racial progress, but I would argue as a woman also gender and with women's lib. Every era of racial progress, social progress, engenders a backlash. I would argue that the 60s, the hippies, the anti-war, the pill coming out, and the women's liberation movement and the civil rights movement, all of that happening in the 60s and early 70s. The current Republican Party is still a backlash to that. And then the abortion ruling. And then, my God, now gays getting married. And I mean, they are freaked beyond belief. They are. And Stevens says this, not Stevens, Brent Staples says this. The backlash that is still unfolding, we're in one now. It really got ratcheted up as soon as Barack Obama was elected. That was an unbearable development. And his re-election. And he says if you look at the reaction to Barack's presidency, and then you look at the reaction of the South immediately after the Civil War and the Reconstruction period, it's pretty much the same kind of thing. You know, when after the Civil War, when former slaves were allowed to vote, the very sight of their slaves, former slaves, voting just exploded the heads of most Southerners. And then the fact that some of them even ran for office and were elected. And when you read history books, and I know when I did, the history books were slanted toward the Southern view. that these former slaves were like caricatures, right? Look at Gone with the Wind. There it is. Look at Gone with the Wind, and you see how they portray after the war. You see how they portray the former slaves. Totally racist depiction, and historically inaccurate, by the way. So listen to a historian, Eric Foner. He says Reconstruction was doomed. Where did Reconstruction lead? Jim Crow. Blacks were freed, supposedly, and then all of a sudden they weren't at all. And Foner says this. Washington, after Lincoln was killed, Washington really refused to enforce the laws in the South. Washington didn't go to bat for the freed slaves in the South. And then the Ku Klux Klan and other groups like it rose up and took over. And as Foner says, they brought to bear a campaign of murder, assault, and arson that can only be described as homegrown American terrorism. Southern states started writing their black citizens out of their constitutions. As you know, they put up all kinds of barriers so they wouldn't be able to vote, right? And the Southern fixation about denying these African Americans the right to vote was a direct response to seeing the rise, just for a little bit, of some political power for them immediately after the war. Look what happened when a black man was elected president. States started falling all over themselves to change voting laws. All of a sudden, there was concern about fraud in voting. All of a sudden, they figured out, sort of like what they do with the abortion clinics, they figured out to make it as onerous as possible for black people, rural people, older people, whatever, but the people who don't usually vote for them. They came up with laws that would disrupt their ability to vote. Brent Staples says, Obama was elected, in 2008. Tea Party pops up. Sort of like the KKK popped up after Reconstruction. Obama gets elected, something called the Tea Party pops up. They were freaked. Black people came in droves and elected this black guy. And they said immediately, the election's been stolen. This black guy isn't even an American. Donald Trump, one of the bigger birthers, right? And almost all of the states in which black people came out in droves to elect this black president, those are the states that have bent over backwards to pass laws that make it more difficult to vote. Since Barack Obama was elected in 2008, anti-government, militia, racist groups have proliferated and grown rapidly. So what this guy is seeing is, if you want to make sense of this craziness going on in America right now, it is akin to the craziness that went on in America, traumatized by the Civil War and by the freeing of the slaves. Same kind of reactions. And he says, this is the backdrop against which Donald Trump blew a kiss to the white supremacist movement during a television interview by refusing to disavow the support of Ku Klux Klan leader David Duke. And Republican Party guys can wag their fingers and express outrage as much as they want, but this is the group that they have relied on to give them power for the last 60 years. So anyway, in 40 minutes, 50 minutes or so, Romney is going to give this speech. And he's released transcripts of it, so the news media is already carrying excerpts such as this. Trump relishes any poll that reflects what he thinks of himself, but polls are also saying that he will lose to Hillary Clinton. Romney is also going to say a person so untrustworthy and dishonest as Hillary Clinton must not become president, but a Trump nomination enables her victory. I understand the anger Americans feel today. In the past, our presidents have channeled that anger and forged it into resolve. Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud. His promises are as worthless as a degree from Trump University. He's playing the American people for suckers. Now, what's interesting is that doesn't really sound like Mitt Romney, does it really? So Mitt Romney is now positioning himself, I think, to be the great white hope. And, of course, Donald Trump, seeing the same thing I just read to you, immediately tweeted, looks like two-time failed candidate Mitt Romney is going to be telling Republicans how to get elected. Ha! Not a good messenger. Well, watching the Republicans try to take down Trump is really amazing. And maybe they can do it. Maybe they can, and maybe not. Apparently, the bettors, people are always, people bet. They are saying at this point, Trump has a 75% chance of being the nominee. And by the way, poor Chris Christie. It's been pointed out that Chris Christie hasn't tweeted a thing since February 24th. And he has never mentioned his Trump endorsement at all on social media. I mean, he's facing calls for impeachment. So Trump is on the cover of Time magazine, and he says, I'm the most successful person ever to run for president. I built an incredible business. I go on one of those shows and the ratings double. They triple. And that gives you power. It's not the polls, it's the ratings. You know what? That shows how he's pulling this off. He's not even playing. He's not playing from the regular playbook. He's staging an ongoing show. And it is true. Whenever you can say he'll be here, the people are just dying to see it. It's not the polls. It's the ratings. And if we have the delegates at the convention, there's nothing they can do about it. I'm the last person on earth Hillary wants to run against. That's probably true. I don't know. Some days I can't get enough of this stuff, and some days it makes me so sick I can't see straight. I'm sort of in a sick one today. I just, beyond belief. All right, so now we got another name being floated for the opening on the Supreme Court. This one's a woman. Man, that would make, 4 women on the court. Would that be cool? Her name is Jane Kelly. She lives in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She's a federal appeals court judge there. Here's why. First of all, she's highly thought of. And highly thought of by none other than the Republican head of the Judiciary Committee, who happens to be Senator Grassley from the great state of Iowa. And Senator Grassley, when last he was heard talking about Jane Kelly, who Obama might nominate, said this. And this was just, 2.5 years ago. On the Senate floor, he effusively praised Judge Kelly, and then she was unanimously confirmed by the Senate. All right, so if 2.5 years ago this woman would be unanimously confirmed by the Senate, meaning all Republicans voted for her, what's their argument? What would their argument be? Here's some of what they said about her. Forthright woman of high integrity and honest character, a person of exceptional keen intellect. So, why would anyone want to walk into this buzzsaw? And other people who have been singled out as possible replacements are also people who've already been through Senate confirmation hearings because they're federal judges and they have to be confirmed as well. And another one that was unanimously approved is an Indian. He would be the first Indian American on the court. Sri Srinivasan, I can't pronounce it. And so that's another one. Orrin Hatch was the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee then, and he said this about him: I'm really impressed with you. I think you are terrific. Well, what do these guys say when these same people are proffered yet again? And all of a sudden now they're fools, idiots, unqualified, won't even hear. They're in an untenable position. They're in an untenable position. If you want a good job or to get paid fairly, you want to move to Oregon. They now have the highest minimum wage in America. The governor, a woman, Kate Brown, signed the law that makes the state the first in the nation to have it as high as, what is it, $15 an hour? But they're doing it differently. So that's in a city, you got to be paid that much. But if you're in a small town or a rural area, they drop it a little bit because, I guess, the cost of living isn't as high, and also whatever, I don't know. But did you hear that Birmingham, Alabama tried to buy itself because Birmingham is a, I guess, relatively progressive little city. They passed a piece of legislation, the city council there, to raise the city's minimum wage to $10.10. And did you hear that the Republican-controlled state legislature there immediately went into action? And the governor immediately signed a bill that block cities from setting their own minimum wage. Exactly the kind of thing that would happen here, I would imagine, too. Gotta love these Republicans. They never met a hard-working American they didn't want to screw. All right, that's it, guys. I can't take any more. Have a good one, and watch the debate only with medicinal supplements available to you of your choosing. That's all I'm saying, okay? And I'll talk at you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.